Mr. Chairman, welcome to the program here. Let's start with President Trump's inauguration coming up. He said a lot of things during the campaign, but what would you like to see him focus on during the first 60 days?
Well, I want to say and thankfully focus on less government. I mean, we need to make tax cuts permanent. In my small business committee, we're going to be working with regulations, taxes. We got to defend it. We got to get our borders secure. We've got to decide what we're going to do on Ukraine. There's a lot to happen. We've got to have an energy policy, which I think he'll open up pretty quickly with the Keystone Pipeline. So I think America will see a lot of things happen very, very quickly that will be positive and begin to get our country going again and to be the dominant player in the world in a lot of things.
Mr. Chairman, let's talk about your bill to make Remain in Mexico permanent. It would require, if passed, immigrants to stay in Mexico for processing before actually entering the United States. Republicans have a razor-thin majority right now in the House of Representatives. Are there enough votes to get this passed?
Well, I think so. I mean, it's something that's common sense. What it basically says, Jason, is that if you're going to cross illegally, we'll give you a court date for due process while you're in Mexico, not while you're over here in the States. What's been happening in the Biden administration has totally ignored it, and they've been giving court dates to people after they're already in the United States illegally and expecting them to come back. And I've seen numbers as low as 5% of those who get a court date even begin to show up, and many times they're tied up now almost 8 to 9 years. So that's one reason we got 20 million people here illegally. We don't know who they are and what their MO is, but this bill will keep them in Mexico, let them have due process, but get a court date while they're in Mexico rather than while they're in the United States. It's common sense.
Let me ask you a moment about that. Obviously, there's a new administration in Mexico. Do you expect any diplomatic dancing with this, or is this something that the president, you think, is going to get on board with and just hammer down essentially?
Well, I think he's going to have to hammer down probably. We need more judges down there to help through the process, and we've got another regulation, Title 42, which is going to be accompanying this, which has to do with asylum, and of course, asylum, as you know, is to act between contiguous nations, not to jump nations of your choice, and also we used it during COVID to keep people from coming over that might have been ill. So we'll bring that back. We'll bring the stay in Mexico policy back. And we'll begin to tighten this border up. And I'm sure we're going to get resistance from the new leadership in Mexico. We've already had some of that, but President Trump and the new leader there will talk and see what we can do. We need Mexico to strengthen the borders in southern Mexico so they don't get up here this far.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask you about your role as the chair of the Small Business Committee. How do you balance the need for border security with also the role that immigrants play in the U.S. economy, in the Texas economy, especially in fields like agriculture and construction?
Well, that's a great question, and through the years they've been great workers, but we just want people to do it legally. When you come over illegally, you're making a bad decision. A lot of these people are deciding, well, I'm going to go break the law in America, I'm going to go hurt people, I'm going to kill animals, I'm going to break into houses. That's not the way to get into America and get a job. We do need guest workers and that sort of thing, but they need to do it legally. They need to come through the ports of entry, not between the ports of entry, and do it the right way, because we're going to have an economy that's going to go through the roof, and we're going to need workers. We need seasonal workers, and there's a way to get that done. It's called legal behavior. Abide by the law. We welcome you.
And the economy, obviously, in Texas is doing tremendous right now. Are you concerned at all? Have you heard from any business owners or any companies here that worry that cracking down at the border might impact their industries?
Well, the ones that use that kind of worker, they're concerned, but they don't want to do it illegally. They're not asking anybody to break the law. They want their workers to adhere to the law of the land, and that's what I hear. I mean, everybody's excited about where the economy's going. As you know, I'm a small business owner, have been for 57 years. I couldn't be more excited about what's ahead for us. But we want to hire people that are here legally and send a message to those that want to come. Do it legally, do it the right way, realize the American dream, and enjoy your time in the United States. And if you want to be a citizen, we have a way to do that too, but we're not going to just grant citizenship to everybody. You have to go through the process.
A couple last questions for you here. As chairman of the House Small Business Committee, what do you think are the biggest challenges right now facing small businesses like yours and so many thousands of others across the state?
Well, I think the biggest challenge are regulations. The regulations are choking small businesses. And I'll give you a quick figure. Since Biden came in 2020, they've imposed $1.73 trillion worth of regulations on small business. Think of that, $1.73 trillion. And to counteract the 1.73 trillion in new regulations, it requires approximately 200 million man hours to do that. Well, first of all, you can't hire that many people. Small businesses don't have the money for lawyers. They don't have the money in many cases for accountants. And regulations are literally choking small business, Main Street America. So that's going to be one of the things we focus on, our committee and the president is too, is reducing regulations. If we can just get them back to the Trump levels before, it would reduce those numbers that I talked to you about. So small business need fewer regulations so they can do business and compete. And when they compete, at the end of the day, the consumer is the one that benefits.
And what are some of the regulations you think need to be eliminated?
Well, you merely have to look at a lot of the banks. The banks are totally overregulated. I mean, there's a regulation called 1070, I think it's 1071, that I passed a bill in this last Congress to do away with it. It requires so many questions, so much paperwork. Businesses were actually making a decision not to give the loan out as opposed to loaning the money out. And it passed the House, it passed the Senate, and Biden vetoed the doggone thing. So that in itself. And the other thing is taxes. I mean, taxes are too high. We've got to cut taxes. We've got to create more taxpayers. We've got to create more cash flow. And businesses want that to happen. All businesses want to do, Jason, is be able to compete. When they compete, they give service and the customer benefits. And free market, capitalism, all that coincides with generating more jobs, generating more capital, more cash in the system. And hopefully we can begin, that's a whole other conversation, to begin to reduce the debt.
Last question on taxes here. What's your stance on simplifying the tax code? And what would you tell businesses they should expect in the next 12 to 24 months from the Trump administration?
Well, I think they can expect a little ease. I mean, the 67,000 IRS agents, I don't believe are going to be on the streets now. People are going to get relief from that. But we need a simplified code because it's so hard to comply to it now. Like I say, small businesses got to hire lawyers and accountants. They can't afford to do that. The truth of the matter is, wouldn't it be nice if you went and made as much money as you could, and we come up with some form that allowed you to pay a simple tax on income? And I think it would increase more people paying and increase more excitement to make more money. But we do need to simplify the code. It's entirely too big and too burdensome.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Jason.